Welcome back to the Matt Ryan Show, everyone. April Fool's Day is today, and if you're 12 and under, you probably care about that. If you're anything like me, you get pissed off at the sight of anything on Twitter that leads you astray. Matthew Hargrove, how are you doing today, and have you been fooled today by anything?
I actually have. There is this baseball writer or just Twitter personality that posted a trade, and it was for two of like the top 15 prospects in the Red Sox organization for like a random reliever. And I mean, it seemed legit, like you said, breaking, and the
Yeah,
tweet seemed real. And I
like
just was
Roman Anthony,
looking around in my room. No, it wasn't like it was so believable because it wasn't
the top
like
guys.
Roman Anthony or any of like the top three guys. It was like their number like 12 and number 7. But I was like thinking it out loud in my room. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Second day of the season, and then I had to go and look and remind myself that it was April Fool's Day. So
Well,
yeah, there's been a couple.
I totally forgot. And then Tiger Woods put out a tweet that said,
Oh yes, I did see that one as
Tiger
well.
Woods said, Achilles recovery going great. I plan on being back for the Masters next week, as if he didn't just tear it less than a month ago, or rupture it, or whatever he did. My dumb ass. I was like, golf, you don't need, as much mobility. I mean, there's no way he can walk, right? I thought maybe he'll just get on a cart and they'll let him just play ride around. And about 40 minutes later, he tweeted, he said, no, Achilles is still toast. I'm going to be out, but had April Fools or whatever. So I got,
Yeah,
but
that was I did see that one. Brutal because everybody was going insane.
I mean, I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is going to be the headline of the Masters. And I didn't even realize what day it was until he put the next tweet out. But um, last thing before we move on to what we're really here for. Speaking of baseball, torpedo bats. What?
Yeah, yeah. So they basically in baseball the bat has to be. I think there's a pretty much a limit on the inches that you can use. So what they decided to do was take the nobody really hits nobody really hits excuse my language, nobody really hits the baseball towards the end of the bat. Usually when they're getting out or rolling over, they are jammed, and it's on the logo, the inside part of the bat. Apparently this former MIT professor, used to work for the Yankees, decided, hey, let's take the unnecessary part of the wood and add it onto the barrel. Long story short, I actually don't mind it.
I don't either.
Well, the reason why is because pitching over the last decade has gotten so much better. The average batting average in Major League Baseball last year is like around 240. If you hit 240 20 years ago, you were considered not a good baseball player, or that was a bad season. So now if you watching a game on TV and you see that a guy's hitting 260, that actually means he's having a pretty good season. And I hate having to say that a guy batting 260 is having a good season. Now it's not loved by everybody. There's some people that don't have a great feel for it. Somebody actually, I want to say it was Sean Casey who was on Pat McAfee, and he described it the best. And he said basically what it is. It's like golf. It's like golf where different guys have certain grips and different ways that they hit their driver, or it looks differently. And that's basically what he's saying is like baseball's just with the torpedo bats, that's in the direction that they're going. Is now the bats are situated for a specific person instead of everybody having to use the same thing. But there's been some people that's hate it, especially Dave Portnoy. Portnoy's he's a massive Red Sox fan, and now he does have a point to an extent because the torpedo bat doesn't necessarily need to be used by like an Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani. because they are really good at squaring up the baseball more than others. But a guy that doesn't hit the baseball as well is
Anthony
going to need
Volpe.
it more because they get jammed. And the example that he used was Anthony Volpe. So, but yeah, I really, I don't and do mind it. And the reason why I don't is because pitchers over the last decade have had, they have gotten better and better, and it's taken a hit on hitting. But the part that I hate about it is, well, now you're possibly taking away the whole point of being a skilled hitter. Like that takes away like the greatness of Aaron Judge. Is now you can just have somebody who's hitting sixth in the lineup have an extended barrel and then possibly not maybe put up his numbers but have an all-star season when Aaron Judge is able to do it because he can square up the baseball well. So I see the pros and cons to it, but it's not illegal.
It's not illegal, not yet. It's not illegal as of recording on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Who knows? By the end of the week, this thing might
I
be.
don't think it will be. I don't think it will be illegal until after the season because
I
we've
don't
already
know.
played. Well, we've already played some games with it, so
They
you're
did
really
that with the sticky
gonna.
stuff, though. Remember the sticky stuff for pitchers?
Yeah, but I don't think that was the middle of the season.
It was because that's
It
when Glass.
was.
That's when Glass now got hurt, and he was pissed off about it because he was like, "You can't take it away. You have to give me a full training for the offseason to get a grip on the
Gotcha.
baseball."
Okay, I get.
That was a big talking point, but um, I don't mind it either. The only reason people do mind it is part of it's because it's the Yankees, and nobody likes the Yankees unless you're a Yankees fan. So that doesn't help.
Yeah. Well, it was a bad look because the first day that they really got noticed, the Yankees put up 20 runs,
And they hit eight
and then the
home
next day
runs.
they put up 9. But if we're being honest, the Yankees have a good lineup.
They're
A-
good.
Aaron Judge was hitting home runs. Aaron Judge actually wasn't even using one, and Nestor Cortez was awful in that game.
I don't think the issue is the bats. I think the issue is like that one. It helps. I would assume it would help viewership is getting more runs in baseball and maybe better hitters or better averages, whatever it is.
I don't think so.
I think it will because people, the average fan. I know you're not an average fan. The average fan doesn't understand or grasp
I don't
or
I don't think so. And the reason why I've always believed that is in 2020 baseball was the only sport going on. And if you still didn't sit down and watch a baseball game during the 2020 COVID season, then you never will watch baseball. So and the numbers, it's not like they had a huge increase. So
I
that's
don't
why
think
I'll
so though.
always
I think
believe.
if you see home runs, the average kid will watch the game more than a pitcher that goes 7 innings without giving up, a run. They don't care about that side as much as they do hitting a bomb because
I
that's
don't
what
think
kids
so.
enjoy.
They'll watch the highlights. I'm very peculiar about this argument because I got really excited in 2020 because I was like, people are gonna sit down and watch baseball because that's the only thing, and then the numbers didn't really decline or increase.
Yeah, but that's not because of that's just because it's the only thing on. It has nothing to do with the fact that the batters were better.
Well, no,
You don't
but
think that?
but that's my point is if you're not gonna watch it when it's the only sport, like people were like, we want sports back. Well, here's baseball. Well, if you're not gonna sit down and watch it, then you're never going to watch it. So
I don't
I
think so. But I mean, that's either way. The fact that Yankee Stadium is a kid's ballpark is the biggest issue because with a torpedo bat, all you got to do is get the ball in the air and it flies out. It doesn't matter where it's at. So that's issue number one. The best part about it is if you're a bettor, enjoy this time while it is here. Big Cat said it best: bet the over, because the over's going to hit. There's been a few more teams now because originally we just started with the Yankees and everybody was looking at them. There's been a few teams now where a few guys have gotten. I think Lindor's hit some. I think there's 2 players on the Cubs that have
yeah,
got some. So it's starting to spread. I don't know. You said it. They might not ban it until the end of the season. They might not ban it at all. I think it's good for the sport. Let him. The fact that it's taken 120 years to find this kind of. It took an MIT guy to come in and be like, "Hey, why?
yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Like, how does
Why
nobody
why?
thought of moving the barrel closer
Yeah, well,
to the handle?"
baseball is also one of those sports where if you change anything, then
Yeah,
people But you're right. It has been good because everybody's been talking about it. So anytime that you can get people to,
It's the loudest baseball has ever been.
ESPN barely talks about baseball, and on first take in their big shows like PTI. Well, PTI they will. PTI does a great job.
Yeah.
But when you have shows that throughout the entire year they talk 95% football and basketball, rightfully so. I mean those sports. Like I mean I love baseball, but like football and basketball, they're they're more popular than baseball. So I mean I get it, but if you can have something that leads a show like one of those shows, then yeah, it definitely is good.
Yeah, for sure. It's just it was an interesting thought.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
hot
No, it
right
is.
now.
It is interesting. I like it overall. It's
Well, that's
Alex
good. I'm going to
Bregman
do that.
even Alex Bregman even posted on like his Instagram or something that his torpedo bat came in, and he had like a picture of a rocket. So I thought it was pretty funny.
That is cool. Maybe Rafael Devers can get one, and maybe he'll go.
Oh
Not
man, he needs. Yeah, that's still
he really
early,
doesn't
but
like.
that's a tough conversation.
Not a fan of not being at third base. Still, I don't know if he's out of spite or if he's just like still pissed off and just can't focus. But yikes, he's
I
not
don't
having a
know.
great season.
He
Um,
cannot catch up to anything. So, anyways,
Shout out Big Scoops.
yeah, big scoops.
Um, let's get into what we're really here for. Obviously, some college basketball happened over the course of, I guess, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We are down to the Final Four. It is the first time since 2008, when it was in San Antonio, that all number one seeds made the Final Four. Um, you say boo, I say this is going to be the greatest Final Four we'll ever see. You have four teams that are in the top 10 of Ken Palm rating of all time. You could see some of the best basketball in these next on Saturday and Monday that you're ever going to see in the sport. I think it's really cool. Obviously, everybody loves a good upset, but this is around those times we started talking last week. Like the teams that make Elite Eight runs or Final Four runs, this is about the time where they go, well, there's no way they can beat this team. So, expect at least a blowout in one of those games. And I don't know. It just feels like it could be a really good game. Auburn and Florida, you got two SEC teams going at it, which we'll get into the matchups later. And then you got Duke and I can't even think of the other. Why am I blanking? Duke and because I can't think of anybody past Duke. Houston.
Houston.
Duke and Houston.
Houston.
Who just beat the hell out of Tennessee.
Houston. They're playing.
Thank you. Hey, thanks, Matthew.
It'll be Duke and Houston versus, and then Florida and Auburn. So,
which will be good matchups. But let's get into last week's. Obviously, to get there, we left off on the Sweet 16. And if you haven't done your secondary bracket, you missed out. But I am perfect on mine. I will say that.
Ryan, if you go to the ESPN bracket, I don't have the app anymore. I deleted it after.
Yeah, after the first weekend.
After St. John's got beat.
Yeah.
If you go on the ESPN Challenge bracket and you go to number one spot, it is our man Ryan Gooden.
So, and I'll show you right here.
And what's here's some proof. Oh, hold it up a little bit higher. A little bit higher. There you go.
There it is. A little focus. Okay.
100%.
100%. Rank 1 out of at least 1.7 million. ESPN sent me something. I don't know. However, the games
How about
to get
a free
here.
Trip to San Antonio?
Why not? That'd be sick, actually.
For the national championship, and bring a friend.
People are talking.
If you say Christina, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. We left off. Alabama crushed the hell out of BYU. We both picked BYU in that game, I believe. BYU just wasn't up for it defensively. Alabama shot, I think they broke a record, hit 23 threes in that game. They shot 50 of them in a 40-minute game, which I thought was the most impressive part. And they just absolutely tore it up. I think there was a stat that said if you took all the 2-point shots away from Alabama, they would have still beat BYU just from the amount of threes that they made. That's a fun little nugget for you.
They shot 49% from 3, 25 of 51. And I don't care. BYU still put up 88 points, but
Yeah. By the way, I think I said it last week. That was the only bet that I had that I was guaranteeing was the over of that game. They made it like 160 something or 170. I was like, this game's gonna be 300 points plus, and it did. They delivered. So I was glad to see that. Alabama just crushed them. They looked so good in that one game. Mark Sears finally had a game where he stepped up in the tournament. It's about the only game he had. Um, at BYU, yeah, they just defensively could not do anything to stop Alabama. Next, we had
yeah.
Florida and Maryland. Not much to talk about there. The Terps just weren't. It kind of actually went how I said, where the first half was kind of close, and then eventually Florida's depth just took over, and Maryland couldn't keep up with the Crab Five. Duke, Arizona. Caleb Love put up a fight.
He played phenomenal, but they just that Duke team, they're just different.
He put up 35, and people thought, maybe Caleb Love can break Duke hearts one more time before he gets out of here, but he was unable
They
to.
did have a little bit of a run
Towards
toward
the end there, where
like a mini run where I think they cut it to like nine or seven
which in that game
with
felt like it was close because Duke was up by like 15, 16, 18 most of the game, um, and Arizona just clawed back and made it interesting towards the end there. Next was Texas Tech Arkansas, probably the greatest game of the Sweet 16. Talk about a colossal choke job, just a absolute full blown. It reminds me of when he was at Kentucky, and I know everybody's going to bring this up, and I don't want to hash it out with Arkansas fans, but up 16 with about what was it 5 minutes to go,
pretty much, yeah.
and then eventually went into overtime. I don't think that was the exact stat. That was a bit of exaggeration, but Texas Tech clawed back, and you know they hit a big shot at the end of the half to tie it up. Cal doesn't call a timeout. They don't get a good shot, and then overtime, same thing. Just a classic Cal performance as far as leaving timeouts on the table, having that look of like, oh my god, we're about to lose, but I can't do anything, as if his hands are tied behind his back. Um, as a Kentucky fan, it was reminiscent, but also fun to watch, I will say.
Yeah, you and all my Kentucky friends, anytime we talk about Cal, or anytime I was watching Arkansas game this year or watch Kentucky games with y'all, you always would tell me, just wait for the final 5 minutes. Just wait. He's gonna find a way to blow this. And that's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this game was this is this is what they always tell me because yeah, 7 minutes to go in that game, I'm thinking, yeah, Arkansas, they're the Cinderella team this year. This is insane. What a story for Cal to make it to the Elite Eight. Now, I don't think it would have mattered because
Yeah,
Florida
yeah,
is an unbelievable team. But the most frustrating part was, well, JT Toppin, they did a pretty good job of guarding him for the entire game, and then he finally just woke up towards the end.
yeah.
He
Overtime,
finished
he
with
killed
20
it.
points. But I know the most frustrating part was Darian Williams had an awful game. But he was the one that just chucked up that game tying three in the final seconds and hit it. He was 8 of 26 and then 2 of 10 from three. And then, of course, one of those two threes that he hits is to tie the game right before the end of regulation.
But what had happened was because he was the only one that kept them in the game towards the end there. Like they were making a run and slowly, but he was kind of the guy that started that run. He finally got going. He was awful in the first half and honestly the first 30 minutes. But that last 10-minute stretch of the second half, he turned it on and he finally got going. That three was like I don't know, probably the 10th point within that 5-minute stretch that he had. So and then he took over in overtime too, hit the game winner on that side as well. Um, I just didn't like, at the end of the game, you have your best play is just DJ Wagner getting downhill one on one. There's never a play that you can go to that's drawn up.
Well, you
It's
know what
part
he
of the
did try
issue.
to did try to do, and it made me laugh because you guys say the same thing as well. Is he always likes to look for the lob play,
Loves the
and
lob.
There was towards the end. Now Texas Tech did a great job of guarding it, and it led to a one-on-one situation. But you could see the center get screened for or pass it off, got screened for at the top of the key. You could see him roll,
Yeah.
and I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, there's that lob. But Texas Tech, like I said, they did a really nice job. But maybe that's what you guys get frustrated with is he does run up good plays, but then after that, it's like,
There's no second
okay,
option. If the lob's
what's
not there,
plan
then the
B?
lob's
I
not
guess
there.
yeah, I guess it's plan B, and that's maybe where he's relied on in the past is having those great Kentucky players like John Wall and Anthony Davis. When the play dies, they're just so good talent wise that they can go and get a bucket for themselves.
Honestly, and this is not to be, I'm not trying to hate on Cal. I love Cal still. Like, that's the only coach I've ever known at Kentucky. Since I've been young, that's the only thing I've known. That's why he gets good guards. That's why he's always had good guards. Is because he knows he needs somebody on the court that can manage the game when he can't, or when he gets to the crunch time. He's like, have somebody, one of my guards that can just go make a play. Because big men in college basketball cannot create their own shot, and college basketball guards that are not good can't get the ball down low in crunch time. That's just the way it is. So big men are really unreliable in the last 3 minutes of a game. You need a guard to close. He's always had good guards, and I think that's wise, is so that he can just go, hey, go make a play, and see what happens. So, I mean, I'm not trying to hate on Cal, but
No, it was just the truth. And you know what? That's a part of college basketball too. On the coaching side, is how good of a recruiter you are. So, and obviously he is a good recruiter. But yeah, you're right. That was a really that was a really tough game for Arkansas. But you know what a time to be an Arkansas basketball fan in the runs that they have had. It's pretty
yeah.
much Sweet 16 and Elite Eights for like the past half decade. So I know you want that national championship, but pretty fun to be a Razorback fan right now.
Especially, where they were not too long ago. So, Musselman, really,
Well, I don't think nobody thinks of Arkansas. I
no.
would say nobody thinks of Arkansas and they think basketball. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
well
it's fair.
now I guess they probably do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've followed college baseball. They've always had great college baseball teams. So football, all due respect,
Yeah, because
all
I'm
due
sure they're
respect,
listening. I'm sure the Arkansas football team is listening to our show.
Ar- Ar- Arkansas football needs some work. So I think they had a
Well,
win against Tennessee this year, though.
oh, there you go. Hang your hat on that. Michigan State beat Ole Miss 73-70. It's actually a very good game, probably the best game on Friday. Actually, I'll take that back. That was Houston Purdue, but Ole Miss was up quite a bit in that game, and Michigan State just clawed back.
I
Had
know
one
that
of those
broke your
Tom
heart
Izzo
a little
moments.
bit because that
I
was
had
your
Ole Miss
pick.
going. It
Yeah,
was, but I just think Michigan State was. It's one of those. They're a weird team this year where it's like they're good, but you don't know why they're good. They don't have a great guard. Like if Jace Richardson doesn't have a great game, then you're like, well, who's going to score for this team? What's their offense look like? They've got a great defense, obviously.
they're just tough.
Yeah,
They're just tough, and Tom Izzo is he's one
you
of
know
the
what
top
they're
five
like.
coaches in the game easily.
Michigan State is the Pittsburgh Steelers of college basketball. You don't know how they win, but somehow they're always good, and they're always going to get to the Elite Eight, the Sweet 16, maybe a Final Four, but you can always expect them to be in the race.
Yeah, I guess if Michigan State got out first round every year, but
Yeah, but I just mean he's never below 500. That's got to
I,
be worth something,
I know
right?
what you mean. I know what you mean, but I would love if the Steelers made three straight AFC championship games and still
Yeah.
lost. I'd be like, okay, but anyways, move on before I
Very good
crash
Michigan
out.
State win. Tennessee destroyed Kentucky. We don't have to talk much about that. Kentucky looked awful. Tennessee just came out the gates firing. Their defense was Kentucky couldn't get an offensive shot if they wanted to.
Hey,
It just
Tennessee is the same way though, like Michigan State, like Rick Barnes and the Volunteers. They've had some great teams, but for whatever reason, they cannot get over that hump and
yeah,
get to the Final Four.
which we'll talk about here soon because they beat up on Kentucky, and that was their Super Bowl for the year. And Auburn beat Michigan, which I'm not one of those fans. That is a great win. They should be excited about that. I'm just
I know there's
saying.
fans out there.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Um, you know,
They were pretty
get
happy. They were
get to a
pretty
Final
happy to
Four.
win that game.
Anyway, Auburn and Michigan. Auburn just kind of destroyed Michigan towards the end there. It was kind of close with about 10 minutes left, maybe 15. Uh, Auburn just took over late. Tahad Pettiford? I mean, I always forget his name. He's a guard, comes off the bench for Auburn. He's very, very good. Probably an NBA prospect. Houston, Purdue. This was a fun one. This was in Indianapolis, so basically a home game for Purdue. They put up a fight. And I did think Houston, out of all 4 1 seeds, was, I had Gonzaga beating them. I did think Gonzaga was good. I think Auburn is the worst 1 seed, but Houston is probably right there with me. But Purdue put up a great fight. It was a great home game. Got a few calls, and then the end of the game, late game execution from Houston was just impeccable. The out of bounds play that Kelvin Sampson drew up was great. Got a game winner off of it, and Houston advances to the Elite Eight.
You know what really makes me mad is looking at the box score for this game is how does Braden Smith only get 7 shots up when he
Well,
plays
he
all
had like
40 minutes?
didn't he have 14 assists or something crazy?
15 assists. Now, I mean,
Yeah,
that's great, but at some point, if you're Braden Smith, you're the Big Ten Player of the Year, it's time to go. And now I know he wasn't shooting efficiently. They were 2 of 7, but I mean, as a team, they shot 40% overall. So it's not like the other guys were just lighting it up either. So it always frustrates me when I see in a playoff game the best players. And you know what? To be honest with you, I think that's more coaching than the actual player. Because how does a coach let that happen where you're not telling your best player, hey, you got to shoot the ball,
I
continue
get
shooting.
that. I
That
get that,
that
but I'm
that's
gonna
what I've always felt.
I'm gonna disagree with you because if you have 15 assists and you are tied with less than 5 seconds to go, I don't think it should matter how many shots you get up. I get that you want your best player taking the best shots or the shots at the end of the game, even if it's not the best one. Um, but if you have 15 assists and you're in the game, now I get it. If he's got 10 assists and they're down by 10, then you're like, hey, bud, you've got to take over at some point. But if you're right there and you're playing well, even if you're not shooting the best or not shooting at all, and obviously that was Houston's game plan, which was, take the scoring away from Braden Smith and make somebody else beat you, which they almost did. So um, I don't mind it as much as far as I get you want your best player to take over, but I mean, they were tied with 5 seconds to go. So, they had a chance. All they got to do is grab a rebound, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. Works for Michigan State.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the Elite Eight, probably the best game that I've seen, and maybe it was just because, as we talked about at the beginning of this tournament, I have a lot of money on Florida winning the national championship. I've had it for about probably 6 weeks now, maybe 7, and I was full on rooting for Florida as a Kentucky fan, which I never thought I would see the day. But Texas Tech just came out. I don't know if Florida came out flat or if Texas Tech just punched them in the mouth and they couldn't get up. But Florida, it took a lot at the end of that game to come back. I think they were down 10 with maybe 4 minutes left, and all the momentum was in Texas Tech's favor. And Florida just stuck around. And then Walter Clayton Jr., talk about a guy who likes to take over late. That guy hit 2 big shots. Him and Hauk hit 2 big threes at the end of that game to secure the win for Florida. What a comeback! What a game! Did you watch it? Did you see it? Were you impressed by it?
Yeah, the shot where he dribbled out of the paint,
Insane.
got to the top of the key, and then just pulled it immediately.
That was to
That's
tie the
unreal.
game.
Yeah, this Florida run, it does just feel like they're going to win the national championship compared to the other teams. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like when a top seed goes through all these games where you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to get beat. And then that's what they've done all tournament. UConn, now Texas Tech. I feel like I'm forgetting um, their Sweet 16 game.
Oh, they played Maryland. They beat them in the mouth.
Maryland, even in that game, Maryland, that one wasn't as close, but they just find a way to hit big shots. And we see year after year when a team you think they're going to get beat, and in the final 5 minutes, they go on this huge run and they just find a way. They end up national champions. So obviously, that's hard to tell because Duke has not been tested. I mean, they've been tested, but what they did against Alabama, Alabama is without a doubt a top 10 team in the nation. And Duke run ruled them pretty much.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close. Duke has not felt pressure all tournament. That's how easy their games have been. So that's why you wonder how it's going to look when they have to play Houston. But yeah,
This Houston game will
Florida,
tell me
very
a lot
impressed. Very,
because we'll get into it. The obviously Florida beat Texas Tech. Duke beat Alabama. We talked about it. They beat them by 20. I mean, it was never really close. It was always a 10-point game. Houston beat the dog dick out of Tennessee. Thank God. That was the biggest hate watch I've ever seen. Um, Awful game to watch, by the way. Zero offense from Tennessee in the first half. I think he scored 15 points at halftime. Like it was awful. And then Auburn beat Michigan State. Janai Broome possibly hurt, tweaked his ankle and his elbow, and looked like he hyperextended his knee, but haven't heard anything about that. And
well, he did return. I think
he
he'll
did
be good
return
to
in the game.
go.
He did return to the game. I don't know if that was adrenaline. He hit a big three right after he came in the game. It was actually really cool to watch. So we hope he's good to go. We hope everybody's healthy for the Final Four. He's got a week to kind of prepare for that. But I will say, looking at the matchups, we talked about Duke. It's hard for me to tell if Florida is the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs and Duke is the Eagles, where it's like everybody expects the team who just finds a way to win to get it done. But then when somebody punches you in the mouth as hard as Duke can, they might not ever get up. And I don't. I hope that's not the case, just because I want to see a good game in the championship. But Florida finds a way to win. They've got a closer who's a guard. They've got depth. They've got the guys to do it. Obviously, they've got to beat to Auburn this week to do it, but they've got enough big men that I think Janai Broome will kind of struggle. And then on the Duke Houston side, it's really just the fact of who's going to stop Cooper Flagg. And it's not really, shooting the ball or scoring the ball. It's he facilitates their entire offense. Everything runs through him. And guys like Connor Knippel, guys like Tyrese Proctor, they just get easy shots. Whether it's catch and shoot, Malawach be that lob threat. It seems like he's just in that short roll spot where he can make the decision, where he can kick to the corner. It's kind of like that Draymond Green in a Warriors offense, where if he gets the ball going downhill, you got the lob, you got shooters on each side, or he could just go dunking himself. So their offense is really scary, and their defense is somehow better. So Duke is a very, very tough team. I just don't think Houston has the offensive firepower to keep up with them.
Yeah, it's just so impressive coming from freshmen. I know we've seen teams like this from the past with Duke, but I mean Cooper Flagg is. Well, I mean, I can't say enough. He is going to be a superstar. I did look up the Auburn and Florida matchups to see if we would get a situation like Kentucky and Tennessee, where you said on the third time that two good teams meet, it's usually what 70, around 75% that the team that's lost the two previous games ends up winning the third one. Well,
It was reverse. It's reverse.
or the team that loses the first two games, they end up usually winning the third one. No,
Now the stat was the team who's won the first two has a 74% chance to win the third one.
that's won the first two.
Yeah, the numbers have baked in, like that's the all time numbers of college basketball. So like
Oh, okay. I totally
that includes
misheard you
like
then.
beating up on Vanderbilt 3 times in a year. So it's like those count towards those stats. So it's like how often can you really judge that? But just numbers wise, the team that wins twice, 74% of the time wins the third time, which is crazy.
Oh, okay.
Which is why I was.
Gotcha. Okay, I must have misheard you because that was my whole reasoning with picking Tennessee. Is
See,
I thought I thought you said the team or the third game is where they usually win.
Well, what I was saying is that that stat shouldn't matter as much as it is which team you're playing three times, because it's different playing
Oh,
Norfolk
okay.
State three times versus playing Tennessee three times. Like the
Gotcha.
team should matter, but yeah, the stat is kind of skewed now. It's 74.1%.
No, it won't
Yeah.
say.
Okay.
But long story short, I did go back to see how many times Auburn and Florida played each other. They played one. It was a win for Florida, 90-81. So now the game was played at Neville Arena. So that was at Florida. So, obviously a little bit easier for the Gators, possibly. But just played one time. Didn't get a chance to play in the SEC tournament because Auburn got out pretty early. Or not pretty early, but they weren't able to get to the championship. Lost to Tennessee in the semis.
Well, so that's another thing is obviously one matchup, so not as much familiarity in that space. I just still think Florida has so many big men they can just throw um, at Janai Broom or even um, Cardwell, and the guard play is going to have to be magnificent for Auburn to win this game. Um, Obviously, defensively, Auburn can ruffle some feathers, and maybe if Walter Clayton doesn't have the game that he's had the last, I don't know, 6 weeks, then maybe Auburn can go out and win that game. But Elijah Martin just had the worst game of this tournament so far, so he'll probably bounce back. I just think Florida's too deep. It's tough. It's a tough uphill battle for Auburn. Um, that's just where I stand.
Yeah, Florida Duke's probably everybody's pick. I would say the game that's going to be closest though is Auburn Florida. Like if I had to pick whether Florida had a better chance of beating Auburn by like 20 points or Duke, I would go with Duke.
So then my question is, let's just assume and be wrong, but let's assume Florida and Duke were to get the win. Let's go a hypothetical matchup because we won't be back before the national championship happens. So obviously Saturday's Final Four, Monday national championship. We'll probably record next Monday or Tuesday, or probably Tuesday or Wednesday. Uh, Assuming Duke and Florida meet each other there, what does that matchup look like?
Are you talking about like who's kind of guarding who or like what?
As far as who's got the advantage where, why one team should win over the other?
Well, I think it's
And I,
fun size wise because both teams are massive. Florida's got the size underneath. I mean, Maluwach is big. Even
7-3.
Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag, the way he can move for his size is what obviously makes him incredible. I think that that's going to be the thing. Is it what happens if Cooper Flag has a bad game? Like he really hasn't had a bad game in this tournament, but then again, he hasn't really needed to because Tyrese Proctor has been hitting threes, and then Knipple ended up having an amazing Elite Eight game with 21. So
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is it. Cooper Flag can have the best game of his career, but if they shut down everybody else, I think that's when it starts to get dangerous for other teams that play Duke. Is when Cooper Flag gets 5 or 7 quick points, and then he starts being able to find everybody else because you start helping off. If you just let Flag go 1-on-1 or 1-on-2, depending on who's down there in the paint, you've got enough big men that you can rotate through fouls. Like there should be no foul trouble issues if you're Florida. So let them play 1-on-1. Make Cooper Flag take tough twos or even threes, and see if he can beat you by himself. I would take Knipple and Proctor out of the game entirely if I was Florida. That's the game plan. Obviously, it's much harder to do than just say go take them out of the game. But Elijah Martin could be on Proctor or Knipple and just make life a living hell for them off the dribble. And you just got to hope that Walter Clayton can make his magic like he normally
yeah,
does.
I've always loved that mindset defensively a lot better than the alternative. Like I've always loved what you just said. Just have their best player try to go off for like because Cooper Flag like now if he does it, but
if
Cooper
he does,
Flag's not going to draw. So I think we actually talked about this when we were talking about like a Nuggets Thunder game, and I was telling you I wish the Nuggets would have actually let Shea just get, because the Thunder were so talented with their bench. It's like, I don't know if letting their other guys beat you is a great mindset, because they definitely can. So I think that mindset comes into play when those guys are not good. But with Duke, Knipple, and Tyrese Proctor, and they've shown it. If you do leave them alone and they are hot, they will drop 25 points on you.
well, because we've seen Duke win when Cooper Flag has not played well. We've seen when Duke win when Cooper Flag has played well. We have not seen, as far as to my knowledge, Duke win when both guards don't play well, regardless of Cooper Flag. Like, Cooper Flag is the engine that makes it go. However, you still need those two guards to produce in order for you to win, because Cooper Flag, unless he goes off for 35 or 40, it's going to be very tough for Duke to create the offense they need to keep up with Florida, because Florida can score. Can they score against Duke? That's a whole different conversation. But I think defensively, if I was in Florida's head, obviously Todd Golden's a great coach. I'm sure he'll know what to do. But I would just take the guards out of the play if you possibly can, and just kind of make it a two-man game with Malawach and Flag and see where it gets you, because Malawach is good, but if you get him in foul trouble on the other side, they don't have as much depth as you do if you're Florida. So use that to your advantage. Use all the fouls you can. You've got 3 or 4 big men that you can rotate through. Jiffy Lube is pretty much, that's what I call him. It's not his actual name, but he's pretty much the size of Malawach. He's a little shorter, but he's built pretty well. So you just got to hope that if you take everybody else out, that Flag can't beat you by himself.
Now, listen, the national championship, either way, it's going to be great.
Well,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think everybody is rooting for a Duke Florida.
I just hope
Uh,
it's a good game. All these games I want to be good. Obviously, there's a chance that one of them out of the 3 is a blowout, but I prefer it to be in the Final Four if it's going to be any of them.
yeah.
You always want to see a good game on the championship level, even if it's not teams that you care about or teams that you hate. I mean, I
Well,
can't.
especially because I like watching this national championship a lot better than the college football, and the
Yes,
college football national championships.
it's
I
gotten
mean,
bad,
when you really look at the scores ever since they have made the college football playoff, they are not close. Even one of the Clemson Alabama games is not really close. So the
yeah.
only one that I really remember being a great game was the Clemson walk off with Deshaun Watson.
Which that
So,
was in
but
2016. Like, that's
oh
been
yeah,
almost
I
10
mean, I
years.
I bet you we could go through these scores. I mean, the Michigan
TCU,
Washington game, even this year.
was it
I mean,
TCU?
really, like there was a little bit of a comeback, but Ohio State
Was always going to be Notre Dame.
they really controlled that game.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, go through the scores, because I know one of the teams, I can't remember if it was it TCU that beat Michigan the year before, and then they got their ass blown
oh
out
yes,
in the
it was
championship.
TCU and Georgia.
Oh my god, yeah, when they lose like 50-0 or some shit, it was
It was
crazy.
brutal.
Yeah, like
I'm
that's
trying.
what
Let me look up these games.
nobody wants to see those games. I mean, I get, like, if you're a fan of those teams, it's easy, it's a cakewalk. You don't feel any stress. You just won a national championship. But anybody else, you're like, you turn it off at halftime. It's really becomes non-existent at that point. So obviously Michigan won, Georgia won, Georgia won a few in a row. Georgia won 22 and 21. Alabama won in 20. I think that was Devontae
Oh,
Smith
you know
year.
what? We are forgetting one.
Was LSU close?
Um,
I don't think so.
the overtime with Tua. That
Was
was
that
a
2017?
phenomenal game. Yeah,
That's when
2017.
Hurts got benched and Tua came in and took over. That's right.
So we actually had back to back championships. We had the Deshaun walk off and then the Tua walk off back to back years.
I think we spent enough time on college football. But yeah, the point is the we just want a good game. And the
Championships have been bad.
last thing I want to get you with before we get out of here. the transfer portal, it has gotten absolutely insane. I think the first day the portal opened, I think there was somewhere around 700 players that went in. It's gotten to a point where it's becoming just NBA free agency at this point because everybody's just buying players, which is fine that they're making money. That's not the issue. The issue I think is the transfer portal in general. Obviously, it used to be you transfer. If you transfer it, you have to sit a year and then you can play. I'm not saying we need to go back to that. I think there just needs to be a cap on how many times you can transfer, or you get one free transfer without anything, and the second one has got to be because either a coach leaves or gets
Yeah.
fired, or have some sort of structure to where you can't just leave school. You can't go to 6 different schools just because you don't like it there. So I
Yeah,
think that's the bigger
that's
issue rather than the
why
money.
that's why you made a good point when I tried to bring this up, but I brought the point a while back of how we need to make it like contracts where right out of high school, if you sign with a college, you have to be there for at least 2 years. Have to be. And then once that 2 years is up, you can go anywhere or you can sign an extension. But when you sign that next contract, that's the only school you can go to. So the limit on schools you can go to is two. Now, I think you said it would never work because, I guess it's not set up as like the NBA, or you can't set it up that way just with the way the bargaining agreement is or something like that.
Well, that and the way that the NBA works, you would have to get them to agree to allow high school players to come out immediately, or else you're forcing kids to stay 2 years in college, which
That's
um,
right. That's right. Which I'm totally fine with. If it's going to get this bad in the transfer portal, just have the kids if they want to go. I would rather have that happen than see literally look up someone's bio when they're a fifth year senior at Florida and see that they played for Wichita State, FIU, Iona, and all these schools.
well, there's a few things. One, it sucks for the teams that get it right. Like Donovan Dent, who played at New Mexico, he was the top transfer portal player. He gets paid whatever to go to UCLA. That's not the issue I have. The issue I have is UCLA didn't want him in a high school. New Mexico did. They got him. They developed him. They turned him into the player that he is today. And now UCLA can just go buy him out. That's the problem I have. Is the fact that you didn't want him in high school, and now all of a sudden that he's good and he's worth your time. Now you want to go buy and pay $3 million for him. It's like yeah, that's
Well,
how the world works. But also, New Mexico's getting screwed because they just got a player that nobody else wanted, and yet now he can. Now there's zero chance they can keep him because they don't have the funds to do it. So there either needs to be a cap on the amount of money you can spend, and that can
yeah.
be dependent on the schools. Like obviously SEC schools, higher tier schools, Duke, North Carolina, they're going to have a higher cap than some of the other schools. It could be like baseball where it's a cap system that doesn't really. It's
Well,
more based
they
off the
would have to
school than
have
the
like
owner.
their only thing is, they have just, which NBA has it too, luxury tax. You start spending enough money on people, maybe there's like some punishments
The problem is it's not the school who's spending the money. It's outside sponsorships. It's like
or outside spot. Yeah.
Clark's Pumping Shop or the
Yeah.
dealership that's nearby gives you $1 million to come to school. So it's kind of hard to regulate that, which is the issue we're running into. But again, I think the biggest thing right now is the transfer portal. Make it to where you come out of high school, you sign with the team, awesome. If you want to leave that team after year one, by all means, you only get one more transfer after that, and that is only if you either get injured and they don't need you anymore, or if a coach gets hired somewhere else because the coaching transfer portal happens every year. So if your coach leaves and wants to bring you with them, that could be your only transfer after that because the coach
Yeah.
they at least stay 3 years unless they get fired before that. So um, it's just something that it's so hard to watch right now where
Yeah,
every year it's a new team.
that's why the one of the best parts of sports is when your team has like a core come in and you get to see them develop, and like that's one of the best parts, especially like if you get a core that comes in their freshman year, and that's why like obviously that side in pro sports is a lot better, and they have free agency, which is the crazy thing. So,
But they
but
have
yeah, like
contracts. So like you have to stay for your 3 years or 4 years unless you sit out and be the
yeah,
diva of the group. So like there is a restriction as far as you can't just hop around. I mean, you can sign 1 year deals and hop around, but now you're running the risk of not getting paid a big time thing if you get injured. Like it's just there's risk and reward for college basketball. It's all reward. There's no risk at all.
yeah. And I get it. Listen, I want, if somebody wants to buy your jersey or have like a dealer, I totally understand that. The problem that I always hated about it, and I know this comes off as like a very old school thing, but how I always felt about like schools paying players and stuff like that, because people were like, well, I think the argument was like schools should try to pay players or something like that. Well, I was always on the mindset of, well, these guys are getting free schooling, and this is a argument I know people are going to hate. These guys, they're not pro athletes, and you deserve to be paid for being a pro because that's the best of the best. Like, I don't think if you're a point guard at the University of Florida, you should be making millions of dollars for your basketball. Because, yeah, you're a good player, but there's a reason why it's a privilege to be a pro athlete, is because that's the best of the best. So it's gotten away from that, and a lot of it is because of the NIL, which again, like I know that's what it is what it is, but
Well, that's why
yeah,
it
that's
was so hard to get NIL in the first place was the fact that you know the NCAA is making billions of dollars every year, and that's the corporation that's there's a corporation above me that my job that makes way more money than I do, and that's just the bottom feeder. That's just the way it works. Eventually, you want to work your way up, and that's what pro athletes are, is that top tier lineage. And I just feel like if you want to give it to where any jerseys or any, because there's no names on the back of jerseys, you can make them names on the back of the jerseys. That could be their sales that they get, whatever. I just, a car lot coming in and saying, we'll pay you, or an NBA GM coming and saying, I'll pay you $6 million to go to BYU. And now it's like, you don't even have a dream school. He's from Utah. So, like, obviously, um, is BYU Utah? Why am I blanking?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's from
BYU's in
Utah.
Utah.
So, like, obviously, it's a home school. It's easy choice, but it's easier when a guy pays you $6 million to go there. Um, so again, either a cat. There's no good answer because no matter what we do, we can counteract it with, well, you can't do that because this, and this. But somebody's got to figure out something. They figured it out with NIL. They got the players played, got them happy for that moment. Now we've got to figure out how we tame this down to something that's watchable. I still love college basketball. I'll watch it to the day I die. There's
Yeah,
old people that
but it
won't.
is annoying. It's hard to create storylines as well. Harder to create storylines when and it's hard to connect to your favorite team when it's like 80% of the roster is new
Yeah.
the next year.
Well,
Like,
and Mark Pope came in, and every single guy on that roster was not on the team last year, not a single one. And I loved every one of those guys, still do. It was a great season. Hopefully, some of those guys stay. That would be awesome to watch some of those guys stay and develop and be 4 year guys or 3 year guys, whatever. Um, but obviously, that's not how it works, and the chance of that happening is very slim. Michigan State just had an Elite Eight run, and Tom Izzo said this is the most connected team he's ever been with, and their top player just entered the transfer portal maybe 3 hours ago. So, like, I don't know at what point there's a
see,
stop.
that's what I don't understand is like,
You're a top player
why
at
in the
Michigan
world they're
State.
playing at Michigan State?
Yeah, what I don't know what more you want.
Well, it's unfortunately,
It's
it's like
money.
what you just said.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I don't blame the kids, because
No.
if you got somebody that's offering you like
Hell yeah.
$6 million to go play, yes,
Absolutely.
yes. So yeah, like you said, they just gotta find ways to. They gotta find ways to put some
It's nobody's
regulations.
fault. It's just the way it is
It's the
right
way
now
it is. Yeah.
because of the NIL stuff, and we did the NIL stuff because there was so much pressure on, NCAA's making billions and these kids are getting paid nothing, and yeah, you get a scholarship, but it's also like I'm making you quadruple, quintillion of the amount of money that I should be getting, whatever. We've got that fixed. Now it's just, we're in that limbo stage of, well, this is the in between where things are going to get crazy. So how do we tame it down? And somebody's got to figure it out. Again, it's not the kid's fault, not the coach's fault because they move everywhere. Um, Really not the NCAA's fault because they're trying to adjust to paying players in the first place because they're not used to it. So, it's just an odd situation that, all these new things are going to present new problems. So that's where we stand.
Yeah. Yeah. It is what it is. I guess is all you can say about it.
Yeah. Well, next week we've got the Final Four and championship game that we're gonna gloss over. We'll probably spend most of our time on that. Maybe dive back into the NBA a little bit. I know some of you are probably missing that, but it's been fun these last few weeks of college basketball. It's always the best time of the year. We talk about it all the time, but March is truly the greatest 2 week stretch that you can have. Um, for basketball. It's unmatched.
Yeah, it goes by so quick too.
Yeah,
Like I really feel like we were filling out our brackets like a week ago. It's so funny, like it is March Madness, but the NCAA tournament starts
March
like the
20th.
third week, yeah, third week of
Yeah,
March, and then it's over with. It's really it's what two, not even a 3 week tournament really. I mean pretty much 3 weeks right on the dot, and
right.
it's just funny when you compare that to like the NBA playoffs. The NBA playoffs feels like a when you get to the finals, it feels like you went through another season of watching basketball. So
Yeah, because what they still, let's say April, May, they start probably end of April. Probably April 30th is probably the last NBA game, and then all of May is
no,
playoffs the
the
entire
the
month.
season ends. Last game is April 7th. That's when the
Is
regular
it
season ends.
in 6 days?
There's only a week left in the season.
Have I been that behind that I don't realize? Are you serious?
Being dead serious,
Well, I'll be. Yeah, I guess we are. We are.
we are at the home stretch. There's a week.
We
Yeah,
are
there is a week left.
75 games in, so there's 7 games left for some teams.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a exact day that everybody plays their last game. Before we do, let me see. Let me try to find this day. I'm pretty sure it's on a
April
Sunday.
13th.
April 13th. Okay, so not 2 weeks. Two
Still
weeks
though,
left, I
because the
guess.
NBA playoffs start April 19th, so we are less than 18 days away from the NBA playoffs, and we got to gear up. Next week will probably be half of NCAA tournament talk. Go over the national championship. Congratulations to we'll go Florida. Congratulations to Florida. Rock with a team I've been rocking with all week, all year. And then we'll get back into the NBA talk because playoffs are right around the corner. We've got some teams that are in that limbo stage that we kind of talked about a few weeks ago, and then the bottom feeders. Pretty soon it'll be draft time. That's when I get my bread and butter going. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, we'll see you next week.